Welcome viewers. Today in this session we will be talking about the simple structure of nucleic acids. We will be covering what are the different conformations and configurations of nucleosides and nucleotides and what are the different kinds of bonds which are stabilizing the nucleic acids. Now let us first move into the first slide showing the photograph of a very famous scientist. The photographs here belongs to Johannes Friedrich Miescher, and he was a Swiss physician and a biologist who first coined the term nuclein. The term nucleic acid is derived from the term nuclein, and he was able to isolate a phosphate-rich compound which was acidic in nature from the nuclei of white blood cells. Because of this discovery, he was able to isolate, or he paved the way for isolation of DNA as the genetic material. Now let us see, rather he put forward a theory or a hypothesis that nuclein or the nucleic acid might serve as the genetic carrier. Now as shown in the next slide, we can see what are the different functions of nucleic acid. The nucleic acid governs the different type of biochemical processes, the proteins which are required for the cellular functions, and it also governs enzymes which are regulatory in nature and control the metabolic pathways. Now let us see in the third slide, it is also given what are the characteristics of nucleic acid to satisfy as a genetic material. So it must satisfy three characteristics. One is it must be able to contain genetic information, must replicate faithfully, and must encode the phenotype. Now let's move to what are the types of nucleic acids. Well, the nucleic acids are of two main types, or they can be broadly divided into two main types. One is the DNA as shown in this slide, another is the RNA again shown in this slide. The DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid and RNA stands for ribonucleic acid. As seen in the diagram, the DNA consists of two strands and hence it is a double-stranded structure, while RNA consists of a single strand and hence it is a single-stranded structure. Now, after knowing about the nucleic acids and the types, let us see how the nucleic acids are made. Well, the next slide shows you about what are the building blocks of nucleic acids. The nucleic acids are nothing but a polymer of nucleotides. Now again the next question comes in, what are the different nucleotides, or what are nucleotides rather? The nucleotides are nothing but the building blocks of nucleic acids. Each nucleotide is composed of three subunits. So let us move on further. Let's see what are the subunits. Well, the first subunit is a phosphate group. As shown in this slide, we can see that the phosphate group, because of the presence of ionizable hydrogen atoms or ionizable hydrogen, it imparts acidity to the nucleic acids. Let us now move to the second subunit of the building blocks of nucleotides. As shown in this diagram, we can see that the next important subunit is a 5-carbon membered sugar which is known as pentose sugar and a heterocyclic ring which is known as the nucleobase. So after knowing about all of the different subunits, let us see how they are assembled together to form a nucleotide. Before we move into the assembly of the subunits, first let us understand or characterize the different subunits. So the first subunit I have talked about is the phosphate group, which imparts acidity to the nucleic acid. Now let us take the second subunit, which is a pentose sugar, the diagram of which is shown in this slide. So as we can see the diagram, so it is a 5-carbon sugar which is known by the name of D-ribose. Now this D-ribose can change from the open linear form to a closed ring-like structure. As you can see, there are two structures of closed ring, one the pyranose form, another the furanose form. Now why is this closed structure formed? This is due to the formation of hemiacetylation which occurs between the alcohol group and the aldehyde group present in sugar. As a result, the chain converts from open linear to closed form and the carbon atom containing the carbonyl oxygen becomes a symmetric carbon and is known as anomeric carbon. Now let us see what is an anomeric carbon. The anomeric carbon means because at this position the OH group which is attached to C1 prime carbon atom of a pentose sugar can exist in two configurations. One is the alpha isomer, another is the beta. Now, accordingly, it is named as alpha D ribose as shown in this slide and beta D ribose shown just below it. So, in this way, we can see that any sugar, after it gets changed, it's become asymmetrical and it can give rise to isomers, and these are known as anomers. In case of DNA, as we can see in the earlier slide, we can see that there are two forms of pentose sugar. One is deoxyribose, another is ribose sugar. Now, why is this difference? If you can see or notice the chemical structure, then we can see there is an absence of oxygen atom at carbon 2' position of deoxyribose, which is found in DNA, and in case of RNA, it is the ribose sugar. Now, what imparts or what chemical characteristics it imparts to the nucleic acid, we will covering at later point of time. So, after knowing about the ribose sugar, or rather the deoxy and ribose sugar, let's move to the third important subunit, which is the nucleobase. The nucleobases are heterocyclic nitrogen containing compounds, and they are mainly of two types. One is the purine, another is pyrimidine. Purine, as you can see, it is a 2-ring, 9-membered structure, examples of which is adenine and guanine, whereas pyrimidine is 6-membered single-ring structure, example of which is thymine, uracil and cytosine. So, we all know that since the childhood, or rather I shouldn't be saying since the childhood, but from class 12 we know that your uracil is found exclusively in RNA and the thymine is found exclusively in DNA. Now, if we closely examine the structure of nucleic acids, or rather the nucleobases, then we will find that it contains a conjugated bond system. Due to the presence of a conjugated bond system, the nucleic acids are capable of absorbing near ultraviolet region of the spectrum. Now, let us see what are tautomerism of bases. As shown in this slide, we can see that there are existing tautomerism. The nucleobases, due to their aromatic ring system and presence of electron-rich substituents such as hydroxyl group and amino group, contributes to tautomerism, which is the movement of hydrogen and electrons within the aromatic ring. As a result of tautomerism of nucleobases, as shown in this slide, we can see that thymine gets converted from keto to enol form, as well as the guanine gets converted from keto or the lactam group to the enol or the lactine form. As a result of this tautomerism, it leads to spontaneous mutation in us. Now, let us see the first step in the building of a nucleotide. The first step in the building of the nucleotide is the formation of a nucleoside. So, what is a nucleoside then? The nucleoside is nothing but the addition of a sugar to a base. The both are added together like friend to friend, like hand in hand, with the help of a N-glycosidic bond. The N-glycosidic bond again is a covalent bond and is formed between carbon 1' position of a pentose sugar with nitrogen N of purine or nitrogen 1 of pyrimidine. As a result of addition of nucleoside, the sugars, or rather the nucleosides, are soluble in water and they are very resistant to alkaline cleavage, but they are prone to acidic cleavage in case of purines. So, the nature of glycosidic bond can be in two forms. If we see this diagram as shown in this slide, so the first is the beta configuration and the alpha configuration. So, the beta configuration is when the glycosidic bond is present in the same plane as the plane which is containing the C4'-C5' bond of the pentose ring. So, as a result, if it occurs in the same plane system of the ribose, then it is known as beta configuration of glycosidic bond. If it extends from the opposite side, then it is known as N-glycosidic bond. In all naturally occurring nucleosides or nucleotides, the beta configuration predominates. Now, let us see what is the rotation of glycosidic bond as shown in this slide. Well, you can see certain beautiful pictures in green and red. What does it depict? Well, it depicts that the glycosidic bond, since it is a single covalent bond, so it enables the rotation of nitrogenous bases around the N-glycosidic bond and making the nucleobases existing two states. One is the syn configuration, another is the anti-configuration. Now, the syn configuration is not preferred in case of pyrimidine as it places directly the oxygen atom above the atom of the furanose ring, and hence as a result there is a steric hindrance. Whereas in case of purine, as you can see, the example of purine shown in this slide is guanosine, and guanosine can exist in both syn and anti conformations. So till now we covered about what are the different conformations of nucleobases. Now let's come to how the nucleotide is formed, which we were talking about from the beginning of a lecture, all about nucleotides. So what are basically nucleotides? The formation of a nucleotide takes place when a phosphate group is added to the C5' hydroxyl group of a nucleoside with the help of a phosphoester bond, converting it to a nucleotide. So we can say that nucleotides are nothing but phosphorylative derivatives of nucleoside. So the example, like you can see, it's been shown here. So a nucleotide is nothing but as we can see in this slide, they are the phosphorylated derivatives of a nucleoside. Now let us see or examine what are the different bonds involved in the nucleotide. Two bonds, one is the N-glycosidic bond and a phosphoester bond. Now let us see why the nucleotide are acidic in nature. If we compare at neutral pH, the ionizable value of a nucleotide is -2 due to the presence of ionizable hydrogen atoms. Further on, it is not only nucleoside can be a monophosphorylated form, it can be further phosphorylated to form nucleoside diphosphate, nucleoside triphosphate respectively. Nucleoside diphosphate or triphosphate are formed with the addition of one or more phosphate groups to the phosphate present in the nucleotide with the help of phosphoanhydride linkages. Both nucleoside diphosphate and triphosphate are polyprotic acids as they release more than one proton into the aqueous solution. Now let us see how the nucleic acids are formed. The nucleic acids are formed with the help of a phosphodiester bond. So phosphodiester bond is nothing but the addition of one nucleotide to another, and it takes place between two adjacent nucleotides. The 5' phosphate group present, or the hydroxyl atom attached to the phosphate group, first reacts with the 3' OH group present on another adjacent nucleotide and results in the formation of a phosphodiester bond. The advantage of a phosphodiester bond is, besides linking two nucleotides, it imparts polarity to the polymer chain. As you can see in this slide, the polymer chain, it consisting of a 5' phosphate group, and at the 3' end, it is having a hydroxyl group. So we can say nucleic acids, which are polymer of nucleotides, are polar in nature as they consisting of a 5' phosphate and a 3' hydroxyl end. Now let's see or examine what are the different bonds which are involved in stabilizing the simple structure or the secondary structure or the tertiary structure, etc. There must be a bond system. Now what are the different bonds in stabilizing the DNA structure? Otherwise, the DNA would have never existed as macromolecular structures, and maybe we would have never come into existence. So let us examine the bonds. The bonds can be broadly divided into two types. One is the covalent bond, another is the non-covalent bond. The covalent bond can further be divided into two types. One is the non-polar covalent bond and the polar covalent bond. The non-polar covalent bond is formed when between two atoms of similar electronegativity or between unshared pair of electrons. Now, as a result, the electron cloud between them is symmetrical and there is no charge associated with the non-polar covalent bond. The example of which is non-polar covalent bond existing between the carbon and carbon atom, between carbon and hydrogen atom, of bases, of sugars, etc. Now let us then see what are polar covalent bonds. The polar covalent bonds, as you can see, is what in this slide, it is nothing but your tendency of one of the bonded atom to attract the electron cloud towards itself as a difference in electronegativity of the two bonded atoms. As a result, the electron cloud doesn't remain symmetrical and it's shifted to one of the bonded atoms, resulting in formation of a dipole. Now, due to the presence of polar covalent bond, we can find such examples of polar covalent bond in nucleic acids between the oxygen and hydrogen, between nitrogen and hydrogen, between carbon and oxygen, existing in the nucleobases, existing in sugars, existing in phosphate groups, existing in phosphodiester bonds, etc. Now let us understand or know more about the non-covalent interactions. So the non-covalent interactions, where does it occur? It also occurs in nucleic acids or found in nucleic acids. Again, they can be divided into three main types. As shown in this slide, I have only shown in this slide the hydrogen bond. The rest two I will be covering in the other slides. So that there are three different non-covalent interactions. One is the hydrogen bond, one is the base stacking, another is the ionic interactions. So first let us take up hydrogen bond. Hydrogen is nothing but a dipole-dipole interactions. Now as you can see in this diagram, so the hydrogen bond, it involves your weak attraction between an hydrogen atom covalently, or it is attached to an electronegative atom like oxygen or nitrogen, and between another unpaired electron or unshared pair of electrons present on another oxygen or nitrogen atom present in a separate polar covalent bond. It's a very weak attraction between the dipoles, but it involves a dipole-dipole interactions involving polarized oxygen-hydrogen or nitrogen-hydrogen system. As a result of hydrogen interactions, the DNA structure becomes stabilized, or even the secondary structures of RNA become stabilized. What else? It also contributes to one of the very important features of nucleic acid. That is, it contributes to the specificity of base pairing, as we can see in this case that adenine always base pairs with thymine irrespective whatever happens, and guanine always base pairs with cytosine irrespective of whatever happens. This is due to the hydrogen bond formation between the heterocyclic bases. Along with it also controls fidelity of certain important physiological processes like during DNA replication, during DNA transcription, etc. So hydrogen bond, as such, the bond energy associated with hydrogen bond is very less. But when come together, they contribute totally to the stability of the nucleic acids. The next is base stacking. The base stacking occurs because when the aromatic bases, since they are non-polar, so when they are dissolved in water, all of them refers to the close juxtaposition of the aromatic ring so that the pi system can overlap. As shown in this slide, how does the base stacking look like? The base stacking look like as if a row of coins has been piled together in a column. So it's very similar to that. As a result, the base stacking consists of two kinds of forces, the hydrophobic interaction and the London dispersion forces, also known as dispersion forces. So due to the base stacking, why? Because hydrophobicity of the aromatic ring, it contributes to base stacking, and the London dispersion forces, also known as the dispersion force, occurs because the electron cloud in any atom is constantly changing. As a result, the temporary dipole is produced, and due to the production of temporary dipole, it causes the adjacent molecule to adopt a temporary dipole opposite to each other so that a tiny attraction sets between them, which is known as the dispersion force. Now, the third important point is the ionic interaction. As in this slide, we can see that there is a phosphodiester backbone. The phosphodiester backbone is negative in nature due to the presence of phosphate group, and as a result, it attracts the cations present in the solution so that there is an ionic interaction between them. And lastly, in the nutshell, that the nucleic acid are of two types. Both of them are made from a nucleotide, which in turn is made from 3 subunits. then let us see, after knowing about the different structures or how the polymers of nucleic acids are made, let us see what is stable, DNA or RNA, because they are containing different chemical units. Well, it is the RNA which is less stable than DNA. Why? Because of the presence of ribose sugar, it is more prone to alkaline lysis, and due to alkaline lysis, the phosphodiester backbone gets cleaved and RNA is lost. As a result, during evolution, RNA came before but was replaced by DNA due to the presence of 2-deoxy-D-ribose, resulting in your stability of DNA and making DNA as the king of genetic information or as the carrier of genetic information. The nucleic acids are nothing but polymers, as we told you that they are polymers of nucleotides, so they are polynucleotide in nature. They are made from nucleotides, which in turn is made from a base, a sugar and a nucleobases. Nucleosides can exist in two conformation, that is in beta configuration they are always present, and the nucleobases can be present in syn or anti. Anti is preferred in pyrimidine, syn is preferred in case of both purines, and the nucleosides are phosphorylated to form nucleotide. Besides nucleotide, they can be nucleoside diphosphate, triphosphate, and the different bonds like the covalent bond, the polar covalent bond or the non-polar covalent bond, as well as the ionic interaction, base stacking, hydrogen bond altogether contribute to the stability of nucleic acids. So this is all about the nucleic acids. Thank you.